what's up? BigHerc916, positivity, motivation, never settle for average. You know how we do it over here. Want to say happy holidays to everybody out there. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for supporting. In this video, I want to talk about nerds versus muscleheads. I've heard comments from muscleheads that say things about nerds, and then I've heard, things about from nerds saying stuff about muscleheads. So I just want to clear up a little bit of the dust out there about muscleheads and nerds from my perspective, and share some of my experiences as being somebody that is still a nerd, was a nerd, and somebody that enjoys working out, sometimes, perceived as a musclehead. Growing up, my mom put a lot of emphasis on education and reading. So I spent a lot of time reading books, drawing. I was really into like little toy cars and stuff, Hot Wheels. I collected baseball cards, collected comic books. I was always fascinated with comic books, superheroes, and that's where the muscles came into play. When I would see the comic book characters, I would be intrigued by the physiques on these characters, but I also liked the smart characters that were powerful, and I knew that being smart would get you ahead in life, intelligence. And as far as like collecting things, I've always been kind of I don't know, I guess nerdy in that sense. I used to like car magazines, Car Craft, Hot Rodder. My uncle used to get those, and I used to try to collect those and just look at the pictures and stuff. But I was always somebody who collected stuff. I didn't collect back in the day to really have perceived value. I didn't really know the value. If I did, I would still have all that stuff. But I was nerdy like that. I used to have the old school G.I. Joe guy with the Kung Fu grip. I had Evel Knievel. Man, I wish I still had all that stuff. I had Hank Aaron baseball cards. I had all the Star Wars stuff. My mom, bought me all that stuff. And I had a little brother. And having a little brother, as you know, they have a tendency to destroy your stuff. My little brother destroyed a lot of my collector toys, but I had all the Star Wars stuff, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. I had all those the AT-AT, the Millennium Falcon. I had all that cool stuff, man. I used to go to my friend's house and we'd play Star Wars, and we would play G.I. Joe, set up a little army man, and make like we were having these battles and stuff. So I was always kind of nerdy like that. And then I used to like to draw, and I would go to my other friend's house and we would have drawing contests and kind of draw these make-believe worlds and come up with these characters and stuff like that. So I was always nerdy in that sense, and there's nothing wrong with being a nerd. I played a little bit of video games, but I never really got into video games like that, because when like Atari, and back then it was Coleco and Television, when all that stuff was popping off, I was mainly into skateboarding, and I was one of the few black skaters, among a bunch of other like white guys. Wasn't a bunch of black skaters in the Bay Area. I was living in the Bay Area. I used to skate in Alameda, Frisco, Oakland, all over, and that was the thing, was skateboarding, and that would be considered kind of nerdy. When I went to school, I didn't really tell other people that I skateboarded. because in Frisco and Hunters Point at the time, it wasn't a bunch of black skaters, man. The guys who did skate, when they went to school, they wore starter jackets, the Converse, Pumas, Adidas, and then when they got home, they would skateboard on the side, but you didn't really bring that to school because kids would tease you. And I used to get teased anyways because I lived on a military base, and I was just nerdy like that, But there's nothing wrong with being a nerd. And I kind of commingled the two, being a nerd and then being, kind of a musclehead guy. That came into play later on, just because I used to see the guys on the military base working out in the gym, the Marines, and I was always impressed with, how those guys were trained and disciplined. So I got into working out. So that's where I would consider the musclehead and the nerdy factor. And I wasn't like super, buff. I started working out probably when I was 13, messing around, 13, 14, and kind of worked out just to have something to do. And also because when I moved off base, there was a lot of bullying in SAC where I was at. And I didn't have an older brother, and everybody had brothers. So I had to learn how to defend myself, fight, and being in shape, knowing how to, throw them hands was one of the requirements in the hood. And so that was kind of like blended with working out. So I was still a nerd, straight A student, skateboarding, BMXing. I had friends that were, I had the hair like cut to the side on my little white friends, and they were really, I would say, more of my nerdy group of friends that we would hang out with and just ride quarter pipes and launch ramps and stuff. And it became a point where I had to make some crossroads, and I chose more of the streets. And that's where I kind of like lost myself for a long time. But, before that, like I said, I was still a straight A student, designing shoes, collecting stuff. But I always think back to, people used to clown you if you were, square or a nerd or whatever. And I think that's so stupid, man. Being smart, especially in the hood and in some of these places, they try to make it seem like, if you're smart or you don't know how to fight or you're not buff, you're weak. Well, of course you need to know how to defend yourself. You don't have to be buff. You can learn jujitsu. I know guys who know martial arts, they're not super buff and they will whoop that ass. I know guys who know how to box, they're not super buff and they can get down. But, of course, defending yourself is one thing, but it doesn't mean you're weak if you're not buff or you don't have big ass arms and stuff like that. Working out in the hood became more of a survival thing and also a deterrent. But just because you worked out, you don't want to get it confused. I mean, there's a lot of guys I know who didn't work out and they put hands on you. And they weren't dudes who walked around, flexing their abs, flexing their biceps, and they didn't talk shit to anybody either. They just would put hands on you, embarrass you. So being a musclehead, it doesn't really impress anybody, as far as from a perspective that you're better than anybody else. And I've seen guys who are, hella buff get winded and get knocked out. So it shouldn't be something that I would say you put down other people because they don't have muscles. I just maintained it. For me, it's more of a discipline thing. It's meditation. I don't look at it as something that I assert over other people. People see me and I'm in decent shape, so they assume, oh man, you're in the gym all the time. I'm not in the gym all the time. I spend a lot of time doing other creative things, drawing, writing, and that's more my passion. I work out now just because it's meditated and gives me a peace of mind. But I respect guys who are nerdy, who can create, who can design stuff, design video games, who can design clothing, shoes, who can paint, who are architects, engineers. I wanted to do all that stuff. I tried designing everything from shoes to video games. I drew comic books. I did all that nerdy stuff. And you know what? All those nerdy things, the people I've seen doing them and the people I know doing them, they're winning. They're winning, and they don't have 20-inch arms. They don't have 18-inch arms. They don't have 17-inch arms. They just have arms. They have bodies, They eat what they want to pretty much, and they have fun, but it's all right to be a nerd, man. It doesn't make you weak. You got to have goals in life, whether you're a musclehead or you're a nerd. You're not gonna, live with your parents for the rest of your life. But if you are coding or you're working on building a clothing brand or whatever type of real estate business, whatever you're doing, and you have a place where you can get on your feet and you have that family support, then shit, there ain't nothing wrong with that, But doing 100 burpees or, benching 500-600 pounds, that's not going to make you no money, man. And at the end of the day, all that strength and stuff eventually declines. And if you would have kept those comic books, those baseball cards, football cards, these, whatever sports memorabilia, whatever it is you collect, that stuff's worth a lot of money because they got eBay now. There was no eBay when I was growing up. You had no idea that you can even put stuff like that. I mean, you'd have to go to a swap meet and you would try to resell stuff, comic books and stuff like that. Now it's like there's so many different marketplaces for it, and there's money, just like, collector cars, you see these old cars in the neighborhood and nobody thought nothing of them, and now those cars are worth money. So being a nerd and understanding value is a good thing. Being a musclehead, if you want that, followers, the fame, whatever. But as far as, paying the bills, there's some guys who at a high level that are professional bodybuilders that make money, but just to, try to say that, you can, I don't know, do dips all day and all this other stuff, working out. There's so many other things that enriches your life, and being a nerd or being a square, it opens up so many doors because you're talking about access to things that people have no clue about. I know, guys who collected Garbage Pail Kids. A lot of you guys probably don't even know about that stuff, but those things are worth money. There's so many little nerdy things. I know guys that used to collect Dungeons and Dragons stuff, worth money. So nerdy stuff doesn't mean that you're a lame, a lot of stuff as you get older, you tend to get rid of because you don't want to be a hoarder. You don't want to carry it around with you from place to place. And if you move, you go to college and whatever, go through relationships, you get rid of stuff. But hey, man, if you're one of those guys who has all those stuff in plastic covers, your comic books, your baseball cards, your Garbage Pail Kids, your action figures, your old Star Wars stuff and boxes still, man, you're a beast. You're an animal. And I'm a musclehead by default, but I don't base my life around how much I can curl a bench or how, my six pack is, or, if I care about a six pack or how shredded I am. A trophy, that doesn't do anything for me. And I've known some of the biggest guys in that fitness industry, and been around a lot of those people. And the fitness industry, if you've been around it, there are some good dudes in it, some good people, but there is a lot of narcissism. A lot of people, it's hard for them to maintain relationships because everything's about them when it comes to like dieting, food, and it's a very selfish sport. And I'm not knocking, I'm just telling you what it is. You ask any bodybuilder who has to get ready for shows, everything is about you. It's not a team sport. You cook in your field, you meal prepping, training, supplementing, the anabolics, all that stuff. It's all about you. So, it is what it is. A lot of people don't like to hear that, but it's a very individual and self-focused sport that requires a person to kind of just be into themselves, always looking at yourself, body dysmorphia, a lot of crazy stuff like that. And, just talk to anybody who's been at the sport at a high level, and you'll find out that, most of those people, unless they had like somebody who really supported them as far as their girlfriend or the spouse, it was hard for them to, keep up relationships because it just requires so much time. But, it doesn't make you any less of a man if you're not benching 315. If you like nice stuff, that's cool. Some people, they base everything off of how expensive something costs them. They go get the whatever most expensive McLaren or Ferrari they can. And then other people, they go and get, something that's a classic. They go get a classic Ferrari, Maserati, Chrysler, Porsche, whatever the case may be, and it looks like it's old, but it's worth a lot of money and it's an investment. So having something to flex, that's your business, but having something to collect might be considered a little bit more nerdy. I've talked to a lot of guys at car shows that have cars and people walk right by them and don't realize that car is worth, 5 to 10 times this car they've seen on YouTube, that everybody's, tripping off the exhaust. And that's the thing about being a nerd. If you're a nerd, you know the value of stuff. You know that guy's watch right there costs as much as 2 of those cars, or that guy's, his old, whatever he has is worth X amount of dollars. And you got to be a nerd to know that. So nerds, cool dudes. I'm one of them. I like nerds. Some of my best friends have been nerds, but muscleheads by default, because I go to the gym and I do that just to keep my sanity, to meditate, to kind of decompress, dealing with life. But, I don't think that being a musclehead makes you any better than a nerd. Being a nerd, makes you any better than being a musclehead. It's just that a nerd, in most circumstances, is going to know a lot of shit and know value in things that a musclehead's not going to know, because I've had conversation with both, and most people who are muscleheads spend a lot of time in the gym and they don't really have a balance as far as being able to have other interests. There are guys I know that work out that also, do other things besides working out, that are into like, nerdy stuff, but I'm saying the extremes. And, to judge one and say, oh, it's better than the other, which, it's usually somebody, trying to, say, oh man, you're a little dude, you don't know, you're skinny, you don't have no big arms, you can't take your shirt off, you're weak. Well, that guy could probably buy your house. You know what I mean? He's probably doing day trading and he's killing it, or he's, coming up with something that's going to change the world, because he's a nerd and he looks at things differently. It's not about, his physical. He's not caught up in, how people perceive him, in a sense where he has to try to show off his body. He's more focused on his mentals. So, hey, there's nothing wrong with being focused on your mental and being ahead of the game and being knowledgeable. So I'm a nerd at heart. I work out, but I don't consider myself a musclehead. And man, don't let nobody try to tell you what you should or shouldn't be. Be you. And if you feel like you're sacrificing right now, well, just know in the long term, you're going to be winning if you are able to maintain the vision you have. You know, shortcuts don't get you anywhere fast. A lot of times those shortcuts blow up in your face sooner than later. And I've known plenty of street dudes who wish they would have been nerds because they've done so much time and done stupid shit, or tried to you know, put off an image that got them caught up, man. So hey, don't let that deter you from being a nerd, a square, whatever you want to call it. You're still winning in life. BigHerc916, subscribe, support, share the channel. Happy holidays. Visit BigHerc916.com to pick up a limited edition GTA poster signed by me for $10, or with your purchase of a Wig Splitter Porsche t-shirt, I'll throw in a free poster signed by me for you. Don't forget to stop by the BigHerc916 store and pick up a sticker for your car, or a patch, or a sticker for your laptop, or maybe a beanie, or read one of the many books that BigHerc916 has authored. For Christmas and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, but your funky ass. Go to BigHerc916.com and pick you up a bundle of soap and wash that funky ass for the holidays.